Our world is undergoing the most dramatic, the most powerful change ever seen in the history of humanity. We have entered the age of AI and the age of Aquarius simultaneously, and I do not think that's an accident. In fact, I think it's the universe's way of saying we need as many people as possible to be in higher consciousness so that we can manage artificial intelligence to benefit the vast majority of people. Hi, I'm inspirational speaker and best-selling author Cynthia L. Elliott, and I am here to help guide humanity through some tough conversations and some tough and challenging times. If you like to be inspired by great thought leaders, tech gurus, wellness experts, and authors, please join me and my wonderful panel of guests for SoulTech with Cynthia. Well, hello, and welcome to SoulTech with Cynthia. If you have been a fan of mine for very long, you know that I have recently been upgrading the branding, and we have shifted from the name Glow Up with Shaman Isis to SoulTech with Cynthia, because Cynthia is my real name, and that's what most people call me. And it just seems silly at that point. And of course, it all goes back to the SoulTech Foundation and driving people's understanding of our goal to teach underserved communities how to succeed in the age of AI. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. I'm super jacked about today's episode because I have one of my dear friends and somebody I greatly admire on today's episode for us so we can talk about AI developments. The fabulous Eugenia Jordan from Unified AI. Welcome, Eugenia.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to see you. Eugenia was kind enough to zip into Florida and give a fabulous TED Talk recently. How did you enjoy it before we get to talking about AI?
I loved it because you were so amazing when you calmed everyone down, especially speakers, because everyone was so nervous. And you also made everyone in the audience um, be kind. So, because obviously there's so much going on and people come stressed, and you just put this kindness blanket on the whole event. And that's why some speakers struggled on stage. And when they, stepped down and when they came back up, audience just cheered. It's
Mhm.
because how you started it. You set the stage and it gave speakers courage, and the audience, it gave them kindness.
Yeah, I had a lot of people come up to me and say, you know that I was sitting there clutching my jacket and purse when you said that about like you think you're resting right now, but check yourself. So thank you for that, Eugenia. You did a wonderful job, and I know a lot of people have come up to me since to ask who you are. Excuse me. I think they could tell we knew each other for longer than just a few weeks. Anyway, well, my goodness, I had to contact you, Hona. I've got to have some water. You know, here on this show, we're real. I'm not going to pretend I'm not in need of water.
Cheers.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to that. Thank you. Because there has been so much news, I mean, there's going to be, I think for years now, there's going to be so much news around AI. But recently, there's really been some interesting things happening around the AI world. I asked the fabulous Eugenia, who owns 24 patents and her own fabulous AI company. She's really someone to watch and to follow, especially if you're a woman who works in technology. And so I asked her if she'd come on the show and we could talk about it. And first on my list, honestly, it's making the hair on my arm stand up because it's such a big story, is the Pentagon Anthropic drama. If you guys have been had your heads buried in the sand, which happens to me occasionally too, um, the Anthropic pushed back at the government when the government desired to use it for whatever they wanted, and they pushed back and said, "No, we're not comfortable with giving you a blanket ability to use the software." And immediately, they were banned. I mean, was that what you'd call it by the government?
Supply chain risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was big news. Please, I'm dying to hear your thoughts on this situation.
Very interesting because it blew up in a matter of days. They were negotiating. They were awarded a contract last year. I believe it was $200 million. So it was all fine and dandy. And all of a sudden, within the matter of 3 days, because they didn't want to sign those two disclosures about mass surveillance and another one um, they got called a supply chain risk. So, and what is interesting, when OpenAI signed their agreement, those disclosures were softened because obviously Pentagon, and again, I'm not, just my opinion, they obviously didn't want another AI company say, you know what, we're going to walk away. And what's interesting, Sam Altman even put on Twitter, he said the Pentagon should offer Anthropic the same conditions and terms that they offered us. And what was also interesting, they still, Pentagon used Anthropic's technology in the recent activities in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen? To me, it was not about the technology, it was about control.
Hmm.
And people like Sam Altman, he realized that he might do some other things wrong, but in this particular scenario, he actually stood up for what seemed, the right stance in this situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think that the conversation around this type of thing in technology is kind of it's more complex than I think a lot of people realize. It's like they want to label things good or bad. Last year, I had a New American Dream come out. That was my book about reigniting the American dream through artificial intelligence because we've had so many industries collapse. This is the first time in 20 years that outside of the tech boys, which are really 25 years old, it's the first time in a long time that we've had the opportunity to actually build a fresh new industry that could put the country back on the map. So I'm a big supporter of artificial intelligence, but like anyone else, I have a lot of concerns about some of the news that I see. And in this case, I'm like a lot of people, I'm kind of torn because I feel like I'm a big supporter of the military. I believe every country should have a wonderful military that is well supported, well armed, latest technology, that our, boys and girls are covered and protected as much as possible. While simultaneously, um, uh, already my phone can tell me what I'm thinking about that I haven't thought about in 10 years. And all of a sudden it will occur to me while I'm walking back from the gym, and all of a sudden my phone will send me an ad for something I haven't thought of it in 10 years. And it's like I already feel like I don't have any privacy anymore. Uh and if we're allowed free reign with some of the most advanced technologies, I mean, where do we not become just cattle for the powers that be? And then I'm one of those people that can see both sides of I wanted to kind of like give Anthropic a little bit like, oh, look at you, because that's pretty brave. I mean, government contracts are a big thing. They can keep a company stable when things are fluctuating, and of course with AI, they are. And for them to make a stand on that, which I think I saw called we're in a conscience war, and that Anthropic stood their ground. And then, of course, Sam Altman stepped in, and a lot of people kind of gave him a little bit of craps, implying that he was just being a pushover to take advantage of the moment. But I didn't quite get that from that. They've all been in talks for a long time, so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, any other thoughts on that situation?
So first of all, I want to thank all, the servicemen and servicewomen, as you said, a lot of respect goes to them. So, and on the technology front, obviously we need to provide them with the best tools and resources. And on top, what is interesting, you don't declare a supply chain risk a company that has headquarters in San Francisco. You just don't do it, right?
Right, right.
It's reserved for China. I spent
Yeah.
25 years in telecom. It's, Huawei, right? It's not a company in San Francisco. So it was a little bit dramatic to me.
Mhm.
So, and hopefully it will all blow over. The other thing is, if us women, we did those type of things, we would be called emotional,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. But when men do it, they're strategic, and it's like, no, you guys are far more. I mean, all the wars are started by men. 92% of the murders and all that, the crime, men. So men, you guys are the emotional ones.
Exactly. So, and that's why I've been looking about this situation, trying to look at the facts.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to look at the facts because there is a lot of insults and emotions flying around. So it's been a couple of weeks. So the dust is settling. They are restarting the negotiations.
With
Yeah,
Anthropic?
that's
All
what I
right.
read. Again,
Okay.
I'm
That
not
wouldn't
part of
surprise me. Yeah, we're in an AI war where we're in a, war for people to get to be the countries to be the first to achieve the most they can with AI because they're going to others everyone else is going to get left behind.
exactly. So it's either us or China. And it's, it cannot be China because of the China 2025 plan. So the only reason, in my opinion, they didn't succeed, it's because of COVID. But
Hmm.
obviously, there's a new China 30 plan, maybe, or China 35 plan.
Sure. Yeah.
And our directions are very different. And China is going with more physical type of AI,
Hmm.
robotics, cars. We're going with more type of, like you said, conscious AI, brain AI. So it's not that, hardware dependent. And
Hmm.
we have the two best companies, four best companies. Okay, let's not exclude, Google, Gemini, right?
Right.
They swooped in last year, boom. Um, Obviously, Anthropic, OpenAI, Meta, that is doing some interesting consumer things in the AI space.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like Mark Zuckerberg is always chasing something. It's like he comes up with a good plan. He always has to put the press release out before there's actually been any work done.
So you funny, like as a marketer, OpenAI puts a press release every single day.
Oh
Like there,
God.
so if you go on their website, so
Mhm.
for my newsletter, I scan it every single day, and it's either company or regulations or some sort of research. So kudos to them
Yeah.
and their marketing team. So
Well,
you
I wouldn't do that, recommend that, but I'm thinking that they're using the press releases as a way to communicate to all stakeholders in one shot and not have to like do one thing for this person in the media, this person and their target audience, this and that's actually really smart. I mean, it's a lot, but it makes sense, especially when they can do it so easily now.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting. So, when we name the list of the top people in AI, for me, I would say that was the Anthropic and OpenAI, and I'm forgetting the new the N one with the
Oh, the agents, N8 N8.
NVIDIA.
Oh,
It's
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Oh, the chips.
The
Yes,
chips.
yes.
I mean, like, and just in terms of the people who've gotten a lot of attention. Um, it's been interesting to watch Apple, Google, and Meta kind of I mean, they were all positioned to be number one, two, and three. And because of, I think what happens in companies is the decision-making process or the desire to be the ones to create it yourselves instead of just going out there and acquiring quickly. And they all were like dragging their feet or it's 10 different. I mean, I was stunned at how long it took Google to really come up with anything AI wise. And then Apple has really been late in the game with their AI. Would you agree with that assessment?
S- Yes, on Apple front, most definitely, because they just selected Gemini to revamp Siri.
Hmm.
So, and Siri been, horrible. And the features, I have the new iPhone, they're not that, even like photo editing and everything else, they're not as great as the newer tools out there. So they are a little bit behind.
Hmm.
So with Gemini, Google and Gemini and their AI features, yes, last year it seemed, you're 100% right. It seemed that they were behind, 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 OpenAI announcing Sora, OpenAI announcing all other kinds of, incredible tools. And then somewhere in the fall, Google says, hold my beer. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and I got to give Grok a lot of credit. I Twitter, that's where I vent. Um, And at my age, I have lots to vent about because I see that as you get older, you really see things for what they are. While everyone around is going, "Gee, you think?" It's like, yeah, I promise you. But it's been impressive to see. I like to use Grok for just a quick, because it's less like edited than the other LLMs. I can ask it the truth of something, and it will, and I can ask it to be sarcastic, and it really will be. And it also is really, really the fastest and easiest in terms of creating a quick image and then making it video. So I'm a big fan. And anyway, I was curious before we get to the next one because we'll be talking about Apple next and an acquisition that they made. What are some of the AI news inventions that you're like most excited about, or that you're most concerned about? Either one. And I'm dropping that on you cold without any warning, but I'm just curious. I know you do a lot of AI. You share a lot on AI on social media, so I figured you got this.
So I have an AI newsletter, then I have videos, I post them, on TikTok or Instagram. Um, and what's it became so it started as my own research for my company because as a startup founder, you need to be on, your competition. And then people started asking me questions. It turned into the newsletter. So yes, I every week I'm reading, I'm trying to understand what it means for me as I'm building my company, what it means for everyone else. So the news this morning, as you and we discussed, were very interesting because Meta acquired Maltbook, and Maltbook is a social network for agents. So it
Which
blew.
is just wild. You guys, if you didn't catch that, she's talking about AI agents is an AI generated thing having their own social media. If I got that right.
Yes, yes. So but obviously prompted by humans.
Hmm.
And what was interesting, like we were talking about OpenAI putting a press release out to reach to their stakeholders. What founders of Moldbook did brilliantly, they had that thing go viral, and everyone tried it. Everyone put their agents. There were screenshots on X and everywhere else, and that's what led to the acquisition. And now they're part of Meta's super intelligence unit, um, business unit. So what is interesting is all those acquisitions because Meta acquired Moldbook. Great match, I see, because social network. They also acquired Manus, which is an agent, and they're gonna integrate it in their platforms because helping with ads and things like that. OpenAI acquired OpenClaw. So an OpenClaw is a little bit more hardware dependent.
Got it.
So you run this agent on low cost hardware and it does different digital tasks because OpenAI is still figuring out who they are,
Hmm.
what they are. Google knows what they are.
Yeah, they do.
And they understand, and that's why Google has their own chips, right?
Hmm.
TPUs. And OpenAI understands that hardware is going to be their limitation. So they're trying to figure out where they're going to go. They partnered with, the new chip company, Cerebras. They might acquire them. Who knows, right? So, but that's, interesting where the companies are going and who are they acquiring
Hmm.
because they have a strategy and they need to
Yeah.
deliver
Yeah.
value to stakeholders.
I think a lot of people, unless you've been in the business or you've worked with a lot of tech companies, or I think it just depends on the level of involvement you have in business. People don't acquire things just because, oh, look at the cool new present. Let's go buy it. And not that that doesn't happen, but if somebody's acquiring something really expensive, you can bet your backside that it's part of their long-term strategy. or in this case, mid term policy because midterm, because the things are moving so fast that having a long term plan. I mean, I think it's kind of like it's like a castle in the sky, but you're not sure if you're ever going to keep heading that way because you might turn the mountain and then at the next day. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff. There's two things that are on my mind. That I'd love to touch on before after we get done talking about Apple's acquisition, and that would be uh, the technology that's being developed to deal with the water and the water issue with the amount of water that's being basically poisoned to keep up with the AI race. There are two things I'd love to talk on, but before we get to that, Apple made a massive, it was actually the second most expensive acquisition after Beats headphones in the history of the company. They made an acquisition this week of QAI out of Israel. And for those of you who have not heard this news, Apple acquired QAI, which is basically being called a mind reading technology because what it's doing is studying your microfacial expressions and movements and fidgets and all of that stuff to understand what you're actually thinking. And I think that's really can be really fascinating when you think of it in terms of the practical uses. But I'm personally, I'm one of those people who's a huge supporter of AI. But when I'm concerned about something and how it could get, because there's not a lot of care going on in how these things are getting out there. We don't have regulations. So if somebody puts something out that has the potential for long-term damage, there's no bumpers in place to actually prevent that. And so my concern with this is that it's actually just an intent reading software. That's how it will be used. We'll start out with it predicting whether or not you're hungry, and then it'll send you an ad for DoorDash. Or it's studying you when you get upset with your husband, and they're like, "Oh, send off the alarm bells. Looks like she's gonna kill him finally." I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but what are your thoughts on this new acquisition from Apple?
So to me, it's facial recognition 2.0. And if we look at what happened with facial recognition software 5, 6 years ago, Microsoft shut their unit down, and I believe maybe Google as well. And again, it happened 5, 6 years ago because it was not correct. If I remember the data point correctly from 5 years ago, it scanned US congressmen, and 27 of them who were people of color, they were identified as criminals.
Oh, that's terrible. I think I vaguely remember this from the news because there's racism built into there's racism and sexism built into the LLMs.
Exactly.
The
There's,
patriarchy's in there.
yeah, yeah, bias, but 100%.
Yeah.
So to me, it's time will tell. They obviously, with all these acquisitions, they're making bets.
Mhm.
So they have the money, they're making the bet that it's going to be technology that going to help them with their company. So to me, because I was thinking about it, it's um, cultural dependency of facial expressions. Because for us, Americans or Europeans, like I'm an Eastern European, when we say yes, we go like this, right?
Mhm.
For Indians, they go like this. And how many nuances like this, depending on the culture? So if it was programmed, because most of the LLMs, they're programmed on Western civilization, culture, books, research, how is it gonna read minds and facial expressions and how it's going to interpret if you didn't train it on the particular expressions of a particular culture or tribe?
Ooh, that's a very good point, Eugenia. Of course, you came with the goods. What a brilliant point, and that certainly makes me feel a lot better. I do believe that we will have mind. I mean, well, I believe mind reading software probably are. I mean, mind reading technology already exists, and that's evident in uh Grok XAI. I can't remember the name of the company where they've putting the implant. I'm forgetting the name of it. They're putting the implant in, and then the people are thinking and giving orders to their wheelchair or whatever it is, and they can read it. They have also proven that they can transfer a dream from one person to another, which is frightening. I believe there'll be people. We're going to be dealing with ideas and thoughts being planted in people's heads. I mean, come on, how are they going to stop themselves when you go
It's
into
already
Walmart?
happening. So,
Yeah, it's already
Cynthia, it's
happening.
already, social media, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
already happening. So it's not going to be in front of our face. It's
Yeah.
going to be.
For me, the most terrifying scenario with that is like we know it's going to happen, but
Mhm.
it's things like pilots. Like they're going to have to be coming up with a lot of shield technology to prevent. So anyway, I'm bouncing around because I found this topic fascinating. You can probably talk about it for hours. I did want to tell one thing when you were talking about the prejudices being in technology. A couple things that I've noticed. One, I'm so tired of using any generative AI platform to create an image of women and having them be sexualized. It is it is about 80% of the images that come out of there. I could ask for a bog witch and she's going to come out with a push-up bra. And and I can say, please make her middle age, and they will either have a photo of somebody who looks all of 18, or she will look like she's on her deathbed. That and also something that I find interesting is as a woman, I changed my name, and like with Google, I have three different personalities. It's probably close to the truth. I've got the Cynthia Shrednicki, which is the person who worked in marketing and PR, a bunch of like celebrity photos and stuff. That's my when I was married. And then I've got my name, and then I've got my spiritual avatar, which is a pen name I use. And so you can actually find me in three different ways and different photos and everything. But as a woman, it disturbs me that no thought has ever been given to the lives of women and how they differentiate from men and how that actually affects what happens there. Like, the fact that when they did all like when they hoovered up a lot of the photos, I honestly think a lot of the tech bros when they first started doing this, they set the precedent for what the look of a woman is because all of those images look like they just came out of a video game. The curvature, if you will, and the overly, everything. It looks just like it came out of a video game. And then that whole issue with being able to track who someone is. Do you think that's going to change? Like for women in particular, like I have three personalities on social media. I mean, on social media, on search engines. Is that something that will change with AI?
So as a technologist, I think because they can map your face, your achievements. So yeah, they can, if they look for Cynthia, the PR agency owner, they could say, oh, and she's also known as this and this. And you can train the, LLM because once in a while I would go on each of the LLMs and I would ask about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if it's not the correct answer, I would give the correct answer because obviously it goes, that's how you train them. So that is possible to train them, and it's also possible for them to see the three aspects, three, personalities of you. Um, for the sexual aspect, that is my concern as well, and that's why I don't generate a lot of images without giving them the picture. I would
Mm-hmm.
upload if I need some graphic generated with me, I would give my picture because in the past I got blessed with, assets that I don't need, don't want, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and unfortunately it's happening and it's retraining it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because when it started, generative AI got introduced to us 3.5 years ago, it was way worse. Now it's getting better, and um, hopefully it will get better because I believe that, tech bros, or whatever we want to call them, men in technology, right? You see,
Yeah.
men in technology, because there's women in technology, men in technology, right?
Yeah.
Let's separate. They eventually will realize, that that's not how it should be. That's just my hope.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see
I
improvement.
think it may be too late at that point. You know what I mean? It seems like they always realize these things like, oh, I don't know, them being seemingly oblivious to the fact that all Americans' privacy was being sold out to everybody in the world for $1. I'm sorry. I don't have a ton of respect for some of the most well-known tech bros because as somebody who worked in marketing and PR since, the late 90s, I watched and not only watched, I was part of that. I remember when Google first started, it was, something I was trying to teach it how to think about all of my clients. And this is when there was you'd get nothing when you'd stick it in there. And I've watched them cavalierly destroy privacy and use that information to mentally manipulate and emotionally manipulate audiences and without thought, which is one of the reasons why I love AI, but I have these conversations all the time because they have such a history of not caring about the impact that it has on humanity or like the jobs. Like the tech companies thought nothing about destroying American jobs by shipping out tens of thousands or probably 10 million jobs at the end of the 20 years. They thought nothing to do in that, and then that makes me worry a little bit. So I'm going on about this, but it does. It's an issue for me. Before we go though, I did want to ask your thoughts about the water situation and the cooling down of the data centers and how they're gobbling up electricity, driving up bills, killing, whole whole amounts of water, tons of water. And I think there's been some new technology come out this week or recently to help deal with this situation.
So, yes, and going back to like your statement, though I'm a girl from Russia, grew up in communist Russia, I'm an eternal optimist. So I see the younger generation, like Gen Z, they don't spend as much time on social media. They don't want creative jobs to disappear, so they use AI very sparingly. And I see it in interns or for my company, and I see it in my son and his friends. So there's hope there. They're not as much on social media. They put filters on. And tech bros, I hopefully will have more tech women
Yeah.
building companies, and AI is giving more women, gives women a level playing field. So, and today there were two women in AI. One of them is Mira Murati from OpenAI. They got big amounts of funding. So it is happening. And hear your
I
concern.
gotta be honest with you. I feel like, as I keep hearing that same name as somebody who got lots of money, I feel like they pick a couple people to make it look good. But when you really look at the statistics and the data behind the funding, I mean, it's less than 2% last year went to women-led businesses. Less than 2%, folks. Did you hear that? Less than 2% of all venture capital funding goes to women-owned companies. However, statistically, there's a 51% chance of a company being successful if it has a female founder.
So, yes, I think it's up to
Maybe,
70%.
yeah, yeah.
So, and guess how many goes to founders over 50 like me? There's
Oh,
no data.
no, there's no data. Yeah, yeah, they don't care. Yeah, yeah. They think the only people who can do interesting, exciting things have either just dropped out of college or just graduated. I mean, like you see that. That's another one is the ageism. Um, it's interesting. Yeah, I worry about the data centers a little bit, but
Yes.
I'm also positive enough to know that they can see like it's not sustainable, but I don't understand how like just on another note, how is it legally possible for all of these electric companies And water companies be dumping the costs of AI data centers on regular people? Because people are getting the single individuals living in a household outside of a data center are getting electric bills that are $1,500 for an apartment. Like it's craziness. It's not sustainable, but I don't understand how that's even legal. Like, why is like, are these trillion-dollar companies not paying for this?
So you 100% right. And last week there was this direction from the White House, ratepayer guarantee or pledge. All these big companies, they signed that two things they signed. One is not to raise the prices on the neighboring towns and cities. And number two, if they even don't use the electricity, they still have to pay for it.
Hmm.
So there is the government in the US realizes it, notices it, and they try to regulate it. They don't regulate AI much. They because they're afraid of it's gonna stall the innovation. I agree that what you said with the rates that needs to be regulated because it's affecting
Yeah.
regular people and
Yeah.
Americans.
And they're already getting crushed while simultaneously watching billions be spent on a war they weren't expecting, which is not a statement on the politics of that war. So just more like the American people keep getting shafted. Americans do. They keep repeatedly getting shafted. They keep sold a bunch of promises, and yet the AI race is being borne on their backs with job losses and the cost of everything going through the roof. It's I'm sorry, I can be a little harsh. I do believe in the positive side of things, but I also believe in stating the facts about things and putting them in the tone in which they deserve to be mentioned, because dressing it up doesn't allow us to have conversations about how we move forward. And when we don't actually, and one of the things is when we're couching the truth of a situation to make it sound better, then the insistence that we actually have regulations doesn't end up happening because people think it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, for example, software jobs, they're evolving, and computer science, that was a very prestigious degree, no
Now,
more.
now useless. Yeah.
So unless you go into like a specific field like cybersecurity, and the challenge is, again, people, like you said, they're trying to cut the costs now without realizing if AI is writing the code and they're not hiring junior developers and middle level developers, they review AI's code, and then middle level developers move up to executive jobs, senior developers, there won't be no pipeline. So 2, 3 years from now, people will realize that, and hopefully there will be a shift
Mm-hmm.
because AI, it might be eliminating the jobs now, and it puts people in a very I don't dismiss that.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow AI to do all those tasks, then you are not gonna grow your strategic pipeline.
Mm-hmm. No. That's actually a good point. Yeah, I think I'm all for winning the AI race because I actually see as a futurist, I see the long-term implications of it across everything from defense to our security as a nation, and I'm hoping that by us succeeding at it on a massive level, we'll be able to move away from our dependency on China. As somebody who worked in fashion related businesses, and not just fashion, I did a lot of things, but fashion was a big part of my career. I watched the absolute destruction of the fashion industry in America, but not just that. They didn't just destroy the fashion; they replaced what was at least well-made product with absolute trash. The vast majority of products that are sold to us now from China are trash. And I have a mad respect for a lot of what they do, but don't think this wasn't part of their business plan. They stopped making nicely made things that they used to in the 80s. They moved out all the American manufacturers, and the Walmarts of the world brought in the cheaper made Asian versions, which everybody got used to. And then the people who owned those companies in Asia were like, well, we own the market. Why are we making it so nice when we can actually make it something that has to be replaced every 6 months to a year? And now everything is just badly made, and even the stuff that's being charged as luxury products, or many of them are very badly made. And understanding that about their willingness to just sell us ever increasingly trashy stuff is one of the reasons why so many of our industries got killed here. AI really does serve up the best opportunity that we've had in 25 years to really reestablish the American dream, which I think is important not just for America but for the world.
Yeah, prosperous America is good for the world. Prosperous Europe is good for the world.
Hmm.
Prosperous Africa is good for the world. 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we go and thank you for letting me have that rant. Would you please share with our subscribers and listeners what it is that you are currently, baking in the AI oven?
Sure, sure, sure. So we're launching at the end of April. We're launching at Startup Grind. We were selected as one of 150 startups. So listeners, there are companies that look at all the founders and you just need to keep, trying. So what we identified a year ago that many small to medium-sized businesses and enterprises, they have a lot of different tools. QuickBooks, HubSpot, your marketing tool, finance tools, none of it talks to one another. They try to make sense of it with AI. They running into the same issue. AI is just sitting on top of that. So we created a platform where you can connect all your apps, marketing, finance, and then you can get data. Instead of looking at 10 different apps, you can ask our platform, what was my revenue yesterday? Are my
Mm,
leads performing well? Is my payroll high this week? Why is it high? So it gives that intelligence to the backbone of America, small to medium sized businesses, because they never had this intelligence.
yeah.
Now, with our platform, they will have this intelligence, and instead of spending time to reconciling different tabs and tools, they can either spend working on their business or they can go to their daughter's soccer game.
Nice. I love that. It's such a wonderful and I'm familiar with the your work. It's such a wonderful company that you started. You guys, Eugenia Jordan is the founder of Unified AI, and they are going to be breaking barriers, particularly not just in their industry, but also for Eugenia as a female thought leader in the AI world. Thank you, Eugenia.
Thank you.
I know it's wonderful to catch up with you. If you are not already subscribed to Soul Tech with Cynthia, like what are you thinking? It's intelligent listening. You can throw it on when you're, getting some work done or cleaning the house. And you can get inspired in so many different ways. So please subscribe and share the episode. Tell your friends and family about it. If you have not visited my website, so check out my books. I'm a three-time best-selling author, if you didn't know, and cultural pioneer. I founded influencer marketing and brand communications, and now I'm on to the next thing. I founded the SoulTech Foundation, which is what the show is named after. The SoulTech Foundation develops programs and events to help educate underserved communities in ways in which they can thrive in the age of AI. We've got a big initiative coming up to teach AI literacy to underserved communities. So please go to soultechfoundation.org. And if you want to check out my books, go to cynthiaelliott.com and you can check them out. And of course, see all the other work I'm up to. Thank you again, Eugenia. You guys have an amazing, amazing week, and make some comments. Let us know what you think.